Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, 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 everyone. I am so happy you're here. Welcome to a brand new Power to Fly Chat and Learn. My name is Hunter. My pronouns are he, they, and I am so excited to be here with you moderating today's conversation with Cammy's head of people and culture, Pamela Grealey. And we are going to be discussing how to make your resumes stand out and sparkle amongst the crowd. So we're going to be doing that today. So before we jump in, a little bit of housekeeping. I'd like to just take you through just some simple things. First off, we encourage you all to participate. You can turn on your camera. No need to worry about being Instagram ready. Having your camera on is a great way for Pamela and myself to connect with you when you're asking your questions, and also with other folks here. You know, this is also an opportunity to network with other people in the room. We have a really great turnout today, so it's a really, really fantastic way to really make those connections. We are recording this, so there will be a rewatch link that we'll send out in the next 3 to 4 days, or maybe a little less than that. And if you have your camera on, you may pop up on the recording. It's possible, just so you know. Feel free to share any questions in the chat. You can use the chat publicly, and you can ask your questions there. Or if you have any things that are resonating with you, inspiring with you as we are talking, feel free to drop that in the chat. You know, maybe some follow-ups. We might be talking about something and you have an experience that you identify or relate with as we go through. Feel free to share that in the chat. We would love to hear from you. And you can ask questions. So the way this works is you can ask questions in the chat. And if you do that in the public space, please be mindful that this is a shared environment where we want to use safe and inclusive language so we can all have a great hour of learning and chatting. See what I did there? And then also you can DM me privately if you want. I can ask something anonymously on your behalf. That's a great way to do it. There's also the Q&A feature now, part of Zoom point, whatever 0.0 we're on, where you can ask questions. And I think that's anonymous too. I know you have that option. So there's a cornucopia of choices for asking questions, and I hope you utilize them. Okay, that's all the housekeeping, tidying up. Great. Let's jump in. So, special guest, we have Cammy, is our partner, a Power to Fly partner. So Cammy started as a project by 3 students at the University of Oakland. They are now a global community of over 35 million users and 90 plus team members around the globe and the road, I guess, and by sea and by land, including US, Brazil, South Africa, Europe, and New Zealand. Cammy's goal is to reimagine millions of classrooms around the world with resources that unlock students' potential, ignite creativity, nurture collaboration, and foster a love of learning. So you can see this is a screenshot of the landing page for Cammy on the Power to Fly website, where you can explore their benefits, learn more about the company, and check out all these awesome resources. So feel free to do that. And now we have our speaker, which I am so happy to get this power hour with my new friend, Pamela. So Pamela Grealey has been involved with Cammy since its early days as a small startup. Her background is in building high-performing teams to deliver outcomes that benefit both users and creators. This can be achieved by ensuring that diversity, inclusivity, and lived experience are as highly regarded as paper qualifications. So important. So please give a round of applause to our speaker today, Pamela. Hello, Pamela.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for inviting me to come and chat with people today. Hopefully they will learn something from us.
I know they will, because I got the pleasure of chatting briefly with you at one of our job fairs, and I was like, I want to spend more time with this lady, and luck would have it, I got this hour with you now, and we all do. So you are so knowledgeable. Speaking of learning, I would love for you to, maybe you could give us a little introduction about the greeting you gave us. I love it, and I would love for everyone to know what that is that you were just saying.
Yeah, so kia ora koutou means hello everyone. and that is Te Reo, which is the language of the Māori, who are the indigenous people of New Zealand. And we, as somebody who's now privileged to be living in New Zealand, but not from New Zealand, it's really important to understand how they feel, to honor them for letting us be in their country. So I certainly use Te Reo as much as possible. I'm still on my learning journey to become fluent. It's a fascinating language to learn. And we do use it, we're grateful a lot of the things that we do. So we do as much as we can to honor the treaty as well, which is the treaty between the colonizers who settled New Zealand. But it's to be a partnership with the Māori who were already there.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. So is there anything else before we jump into the questions about having our resumes stand out? Is there anything else you would like to share with us about, I read a little bit about your bio there, but anything about I love that you said learning journey earlier, anything about that or your career journey that might be beneficial for us to be on the inside scoop about?
I mean, certainly for me, I've been on both sides. Obviously, I've had my resumes ignored by companies previously when I was starting out, which is why, I love working with Cami. What we do is that we do read everyone's resume, which for some of our roles, we have over 1,500 applicants for a particular role. So it takes us a while sometimes to get through them all, but we read them all. We don't use AI to sift. So we're looking for nuggets of you. So what makes people unique is themselves. Everybody's got, a lot of people have got the same skills. So tell us, I always look for resumes that tell me a little bit about that person that's applying. There's no magic layout. And sometimes there will be, if you're not sending your resume to Cami, you will be in places who will not be looking at your resume. They'll be using AI to sift. So it's important to make sure that your resume, put a cover letter in. A lot of people don't do that anymore. So there's a number of things that you can do. And be careful with your fonts. If you're visually impaired, some of the fonts and colors that people send are really hard to read. So use a plain font on a plain paper would be one way of ensuring that people will at least read your resume.
I love that. Yeah, it's a fine line, isn't it? About you want to stand out, you want to be creative, but then also sometimes it can be distracting or actually unreadable for someone because we didn't take into account, someone might literally see colors differently than you do or not at all.
Absolutely. I mean, I find some of the curly fonts, I think, I can't read that. and small fonts as well, it's quite gosh, I have to zoom them out as I'm getting older and my eyesight's, getting worse.
Yeah.
So there's just a number of things. Just be mindful of things like that when you're doing things like that.
Yeah. I think it's almost a joke in some communities of like writing something in Comic Sans, it's like the last thing you would ever want to do. Unless
sometimes you might think the role that you're applying for might actually be, you're doing something in an ironic way.
Yeah.
So you put it in Comic Sans.
Yeah, you never know, right? Like rules are meant to be broken at sometimes. And I think what you're speaking to too is like, I mean, we're going to jump into the questions in a moment, but that is already in one sentence you described, like, do your research on the company, because if you're applying for one thing, it might be different, right, than a different company, and to know your intention of what you're trying to put out there.
Absolutely. And make sure the thing that I think I get most despondent about when we're doing CV sifting is everyone has written the same thing. That's obviously it's a boilerplate that they've got from somewhere, and it's fine because you need to know that information, but there's different ways of presenting it. But make it relevant to the company that you're applying for, because we can tell when you've obviously sent out 15, 20 CVs that day.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people don't even remember to change the name of the company that they're writing to.
Yeah, that one might, be noticeable.
Telling me how much they would love to work at one of our competitors, and I just think, oh yeah, okay, cool.
And shout out to Jennifer Lynn in the chat. She says, Comic Sans is very readable. It's one of the rare fonts that has a circle and a straight line for the letter A. So it's great for elementary readers. Awesome. I love that. Learn something new. Okay, so and a +1 from Leonard. Love it. So the way this is going to work, friends, for the next 45 minutes is we have a list of questions that were pre-submitted by y'all. So thank you so much for that. They've been anonymized, so I don't know who wrote them. If you hear your question and you want to give a shout out to it in the chat, feel free. If not, also good. And please feel free to ask more questions in the chat, and we will pepper those in. So we have a lot of great questions here. And, you mentioned a couple of times right out of the gate about AI. So I want to jump to a question we had about that. Someone asked, how likely is it that my resume will be screened by AI before ever having a real person read it? And how do I make it past the AI screening?
I think it depends on who you're applying to. A lot of the larger corporate companies, so maybe PepsiCo, people who are got enormous numbers of people that they employ. When you've got hundreds of thousands of employees across the globe, chances are you'll be employing AI to do your CV sifting, at least the initial one. Certainly with smaller companies, not so much, because we've got the time and we're looking for those individuals as opposed to somebody who's just going to slot into a corporate role. The way really to get past it is to note what keywords they're using in the advert and make sure you use those on their resume. So if they say they're looking for somebody with a degree and you don't have a degree, but you've got all the experience, write in there somewhere that you're considering a degree.
That's a good
or you're working on a degree. You're currently, putting yourself through college, working on a degree outside of your working hours. So put something in there that it will pick out the word that they're looking for. And it is keywords like that. And you'll also see keywords on company websites. You'll notice words that they use a lot, the way that they describe things. And those are the things, if you want specifically to join that company, is do your research on their keywords and make sure that they're in your resume.
That is solid pro tip advice. That is good. And that makes me think about too, how you would on your LinkedIn, or if you have a website, you want to put these keywords that are, searchable words, whether it be by humans or by AI, which is all the buzz right now.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing just with AI, get ChatGPT to review your CV for you. Anonymize it a little bit, because obviously it's all out there then, but it's quite a good review tool for that. It points out things, helps you write things a little bit better sometimes, particularly if you're applying in a language that's not your first language. So there's just little things. So you can use AI for good as much as evil.
Please do, friends. If you take one thing from this conversation with Pamela, use AI for good, please.
I mean, I sometimes review, if there's no one, I've had, people tell me that they've had AI review their code in the absence of having anyone else that could directly review their code for them. And you obviously be mindful of its limitations, a little bit like Google Translate when you're trying to translate something, but it's really quite a nice little thing for you. Oh, okay, yeah, maybe I could phrase that better, or maybe that word doesn't fit there. So it's just those kind of things that you can do. And again, you can, like anything, you can game it to a certain extent by putting in keywords in a context, like I say, as in, I'm considering doing a degree in whatever the topic that they've asked for a degree in.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to just load it up with keywords that have no context.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that'll clearly stand out as a red flag. Yeah. There's been some love for AI in the chat here. There's some folks that said, Carrie said, it's great to tighten up accomplishment bullets.
Yeah.
We also got Mary said, I asked ChatGPT what skills I had and what jobs I would be good at. And from there, I tweaked my resume. Very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I use it for things outside of work as well. So, I tell it who it is. So I tell, right, I'm a middle-aged woman in New Zealand and I need to find out about such and such. And I type it all in, and it pops back a little statement, which you can then refine. You can ask it to have another go, but it's really useful for things like that. And I see in the chat that people saying that it's to write cover letters, and it's absolutely right. It's just honing in on facts. And that's really important for some of these things, is depending on if you're applying for some kind of role that, I don't know, legal roles, finance roles, anything that requires you to be really factual in what you're doing. ChatGPT is great. It doesn't feel anything, but it can certainly, it can tighten things up. It can pretend to be a human, but again, it's not really got that emotion that you would get, because that's the other thing with a cover letter, is it should be about you, because that's your opportunity to say what you do outside of, I always like to see people's interests on a resume, because that's the bit that makes you different from everyone else that's applying with the same experiences maybe, or the same qualifications. The bit that makes you different is what you do around all your work life. So write those either into a cover letter, tell me what volunteering you're doing, tell me what causes you're interested in, tell me what instrument you play, all kinds of things, but make it about you and about why you would be great for that role that you've applied for.
I love that. And how long do you think a cover letter is a good length these days?
Certainly no more than 3 tidy paragraphs. So anything that goes over a page, same with your resume. A lot of people nobody's got time to read all that. Right. Interesting, maybe, but it's just, if you think about, you've got, hundreds, thousands, potentially CVs and cover letters to read.
Right. And you want to make it easy for the person reading it.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, I love this. This is so great. So let's see. On the topic of length, Angela just asked, how do you keep your resume a reasonable length while getting all those things in? We have some other questions that sort of ask things about this, like what to include, what not to include. And, with a resume, there's a lot of questions coming up about career gaps as well, coming back, returnerships, those folks as well. So how do we kind of get everything there in the most effective one-pager?
Okay, so certainly for me, and I can only talk for me, much as I like to think that, I'm a global sensation. Not yet. So certainly for me, what I like to see is I like a little personal statement. Sometimes it's called a resume objective, where it just says, what is it what you want to do? What are you, I'm a passionate full stack developer who wants to make a difference to the world. Those kind of things in your personal statement. And then I like to see your experience. Start with your most recent. Put anything relevant, because what you can do, especially if you've had a longer career, for some of us older types, you've got a lot of jobs over, 20, 30 years of experience. And with those, I just do a list the titles that you held at the companies that you held them with the dates that you were there. And then people can see that you've worked, because it might be relevant that maybe you worked at Google 15 years ago, but actually you were on the front desk. It's the front desk part isn't relevant to the coding job that you're applying for now, but the fact that you worked at Google is always interesting to people, particularly in startup land.
That's smart.
So you can do it in there. If you've got a career gap, make whatever you did into a project. So for example, if you were raising your family, you've been CEO of a rambunctious company and you've been doing planning and time management and, full-scale kitchen hand work, you can make it into that. If you've been traveling, you've been doing logistics, you've been planning, you've been, working out learning new cultures. So make it into, tell us what you learned in that career gap, because there's always something that you will have done that will be relevant to or transferable into a workplace. never shy away from a career gap.
I love that. And on a related note, I'm going to do a shameless plug for another chat I was very grateful to moderate there, How to Combat Ageism in the Workplace. Helen Sanchez, I love her so much. And she is so smart and so fun. It's a great chat. If any of what Pamela was just talking about with some career gap stuff, that is a great hour that we hone in on that topic. So, of looking at dates and timelines, how people can use that as a way to be sneaky against you. Check out what Helen has to say. She has a lot of great tips about that.
So on that ageism topic for people who are about their resumes, I've actually lost about 10 years off my resume because it wasn't relevant for what I was doing. I actually trained as a beauty therapist back in the day. And then I actually found that I hated doing it. It wasn't the right job for me. But I enjoyed running my own business. And that's how I ended up in startup land and software world. So what I did was I just left the beauty therapy stuff off the bottom. And I didn't put dates on there because I also found that as I got older, it was more difficult to actually get through the first gate. So the minute I dropped anything that related to what could possibly age me, and this was once I got over 40, anything that could age me, I took it off there because my experience is still valid, and I just put my experience on there.
Yeah. So I just had this visual of you're like, this beautiful life is tearing me apart.
It just, sometimes, and that's also, recognize sometimes if you haven't got much experience and you're doing a career pivot, say why. I mean, for me, it wasn't fulfilling. I was working in I was working in Knightsbridge, very exclusive part of London, and it was very shallow. So for me, it wasn't the right thing. So initially I was putting on, career pivot, just say you had a career pivot.
Yeah. And now more than ever, I feel like that's really accepted and embraced.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So friends, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We have about 30 minutes left for that portion. So we would love to hear from you. One of our pre-submitted questions, someone asked, what's the most important feature of a resume? As an HR professional, what captures your attention in a resume? So we talked a bit about the cover letter there. Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's got to be clean and tidy. It's got to be really accessible from a reading perspective. When I look at it, I want to be able to see, who are you? I need your contact details. I mean, the number of people who do forget to put their contact details on is quite surprising. I need your contact details. And I'd like to see that. So I need that personal statement or resume objective, interests, your skills, your experience. Those are the key things that are on there. And if you've got time, if you haven't filled up the page, it's great that you can put your interests on there. And what I'm seeing a lot of people doing now is putting a cover letter included into the CV. So you've got a one-page cover letter and a one-page CV, which gives you a two-page CV, which is really the maximum you want to see. And that's great. And there was a question in the chat about cover letters. We read all the cover letters that come in, but I can't guarantee that every company does that.
Right. And for the cover letters, when you say, you want to personalize everything, but there's going to be some things that are consistent probably in a lot of those cover letters, but it's just about making some fine-tuned tweaking, would you say?
It is. I mean, the cover letters probably most important is if you haven't got experience in the role that you're applying for. So as an example, we encourage ex-educators to apply for CAMI always, because we love people to have that background in the subject that we're talking to people about. But people just send me their school CV and I can't then, it's really hard. Well, how can I work out from this how you can translate that into a technical role, a sales role, a support role, because you've given me nothing on there to do that. And that's what you should use your cover letter for. You want to transition into, and then you tell me what your transferable skills are in there. I've managed teams. I've always done the raffles, the bake sales, all those, those kind of things that would make something that would relate to the role that you're applying for, because otherwise we've got nothing. We can't say out of those, maybe, we get 300 CVs for a particular role. If 50 of them don't have anything relevant, those will be the ones that we put, we're not going to look at those. We're going to look at the ones that have got something relevant or have told us in their cover letter why we should be looking at them. Yeah. So it's always, that's the bit that you can personalize.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And Carrie asked, how do you feel about skill-based resume formats?
I think they're good. I think it depends. So some people, it works better for them. And again, don't forget that people who are writing the resumes will all have different ways of thinking about what good looks like. So with some of the neurodiverse people, they're skill-based resumes, but what's going to appeal for them, that's going to be how they're going to present themselves. And that's great. Do that. What I'm looking for is I need to know that you've read my job advert, you've read my post, and you understand what I'm looking for. If you're applying specifically for that role, and a skill-based resume is good. And again, with that, we welcome everybody to apply. If you've got the skills, apply for the role. If you want to apply for a role that's not listed, then don't apply in amongst a big role like that. Just send it. We've got careers@camiapp.com. I think Libby might be in the audience. I'm hoping she's going to pop that on the chat for me. But careers@camiapp.com is where you can just send us your resume, because I'd really like to work for Cami. What can I do to help you? This is what I've done. Let me know, because we do keep those CVs on file, those resumes on file. We've got a little folder called, maybe not just yet, but because sometimes things come up. It's didn't we have a CV from somebody who could juggle while chainsawing a tree and giving a PD to a teacher. So there's those kind of things. It's like, right, that might be the role for this person. So we look at those and we do go back through them. So that would be because otherwise your resume will get lost. If you apply for a specific thing that you can't justify, for want of a better expression, it's likely to end up in the thanks but no thanks pile.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love the candidates for a rainy day file. That's lovely. And Libby did a shout out. You can email Cami at careers@camiapp.com. You can also check out the Power to Fly landing page. Lots of great resources there. Okay, friends, this is great. So many awesome questions are coming in now. I love this. We have about 30 minutes left. So fantastic. Excuse me. So someone asked, do you recommend including a headshot in the resume? And also, we talked a little bit about this. And what about graduation dates? Are those relevant? And we can kind of open it up to dates in general, as we were alluding to earlier.
So to answer the dates question first, so depends on how much you've got on your CV. Again, for that ageism, you might want to perhaps not put them on, but just say that you've done it. For people who are newer to the workforce, then the graduation dates, yes, absolutely put them in. That there's absolutely, the less you've got to work with, the more you need to put about the things that you're doing currently. And headshot wise, I think it depends on what you're doing. If you do, so I think certain countries, maybe UK, they do like to see a headshot, or they don't like to see a headshot, because you want to be able to say that you've got a fair and just practice. And sometimes with subconscious bias, if you send in a headshot and somebody doesn't like the look of you, you can end up not, that hat that person's wearing, I can't possibly interview anyone wearing that hat. So there's little things like that that subconscious bias that people don't know that they've got. So don't put a headshot in unless you're applying for a job that is about what you look like. And if you are going to put a headshot in, if you're not applying for a modeling role, I don't want to see blue steel. What I want to see is a really good, clean shot of your face. I want to see that. That's it. That's the only reason that you would put a headshot in, so that people can see that, yeah, look at me, I'm friendly and affable. That's really what you're going for with a headshot.
If anyone is unaware what blue steel is, that is a early aughts reference to the film Zoolander starring Ben Stiller, where he plays a model, and this is blue steel. So don't do that. They want to see you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Gosh, where's the sequel to Zoolander, right? Give us the TikTok version of that. Oof.
Well, that would be great. And hopefully this time he can turn left at the bottom of the runway.
No, maybe progress, but he's going to try. That's like the whole arc, the plot of 2. Can he turn right? Okay, friends. Sir, what else we got? What is the best way to, oh yeah, I love this. What is the best way to tailor a CV according to job requirements without imitating it? Would appreciate your advice on the correct use of keywords in our resume. So we talked a little bit about how to use some keywords, but how do we, adjust to something without seeming so like copycat and like pandery?
Yeah, I think with that, it's just look at the where you've done similar, and it's perfect. Actually, it's perfectly okay to emulate what somebody's put in their job requirements, because again, particularly if they're using AI, if they are sifting using AI, then if you don't kind of replicate, it's quite a tricky thing. But put your own spin on it. Put your own self in the way you describe what you did that met that requirement. It might be that you were in a particular role. How did you do that to achieve that requirement? So it's not a terrible thing to imitate, but it shouldn't be like a cut and paste, where you've got your bullet points in the job description. Don't say, I have done coding, I have done, put a little bit of a creative flair to the bullet points.
Love that. And on a related note, someone asked, how can we identify what makes us uniquely qualified for a role? And how should we highlight that in a resume or possibly in the cover letter?
Yeah, so the thing that makes you uniquely qualified is you. So we all, at Cami, we always say, just do you. You do you, because that's the thing that you're probably the best at. You might be the world's best coder or support person, but you're also the best person at being you. So thanks to Dr. Zeus for that. That should come through in your resume objective or your personal statement, the bit that makes it why we should take you over everyone else that's applied.
I love that. If I'm remembering correctly from the job fair, you also have a pretty unique values expression. Am I right? Was that Cami?
That is us, yes. Our main value is don't be a dick. And we expect everybody, every other policy that we have in the organization always comes back to, if you ask yourself, am I being a dick? And the answer is yes, then stop it. Because that's what
Bob Newhart sketch with as a therapist, and she's like, oh, I'm having all these problems and da-da-da. He's like, okay, stop it.
I think that's the only thing, with a lot of, we're talking of the therapy. So we do offer EAP counseling because we also recognize that stuff is really tough at the moment. Life can be a grind for a lot of people. So we try and support people in doing that. Still doesn't give them the right to be a dick.
Right. You get to go talk it out with a therapist, and maybe you can improve on those things of why it's coming off as that type of behavior. And maybe we can make a shift, an internal shift, so to speak.
We've even got a flow chart for that, and you can see them online. Not so much on not on Cami, but certainly you can. There are now don't be a dick flow charts.
Oh, to be a fly on that wall of that meeting. I'd love. See, there's so many reasons to check out Cami. See if you too can be on the Don't Be a Dick campaign.
You can just imagine now I'm going to get heaps of cover letters saying, I'm not a dick. Employ me.
Gonna get maybe one with like the cross out emoji with like an eggplant in the middle of it. And you're like, I'm not that.
Yeah. I mean, the first one will be funny. The second one, it's like, oh no, now it's become a thing.
Yeah. This part of the chat and learn will be censored We're just gonna have about 2 minutes of a black box, and then they're just gonna cut all this out, fix it in post. Sorry, guys. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so someone asked, Monica Friend, yes, you're back. Hello, Monica Friend. I remember you. How do you grapple with varying definitions of terms and roles while applying for different companies?
I think with that, you have to be really clear on what your skill set is. Because if it's called, I wouldn't know even where to start with that. We have that in ours. We have customer success managers, and they're actually a lot on the support side, more on the customer support side, because customer success can also encompass account management. So what we do with that is we look for the relevant skills. So that's the only way you can do it, because you can't stop people from changing job titles. The other thing is a lot of over titling happens, particularly in startups, where somebody's called, manager of something, and actually they're not managing anything, but because they've got manager in the title, they apply for other manager jobs without having the relevant skills. So it's that when you're doing that, look at the requirements of the job and tailor your skills to it.
Great advice. Someone asked, I firmly believe that when building and managing a software team, it's just as important to pay attention to personality, attitude, and emotional intelligence as it is to look for technical skills. I'm an exceptional people person with good technical skills. How do I highlight my soft skills over the hard ones in a resume?
I think it depends on the role that you're applying for with that one. In your resume, put down your people management skills, talk about the successes you've had mentoring, coaching people in the teams, and the impact that's had on the actual effectiveness of the department. So how did your soft skills encourage, greater, it might be additional creativity, increased performance. So what was it about your skills that did that? And again, apply for the right job with that. Because if I'm looking for a full stack developer, and it's a full stack developer that I want because I need somebody to work on the product, it's your technical skills that I'm going to be viewing first, regardless of how good you are as a people person. That would be a bonus then in that particular. But if I'm looking for a team lead, then that's a different thing. I need somebody with those people skills. So always put them in though, whatever skills that you've got that make you, put them in your resume. Because I always, one of the things that we do say is sometimes we don't know we're looking for you until we see your CV.
Someone asked in the chat just now, how do you lock down a new job after you've been laid off? So any suggestions to those looking for a job after the layoff period?
Oh gosh, I don't know if again with that is look at the roles, take a little time back to think when you've been laid off, because it's a real shock. It's one of those, even if you think ultimately you might think it's the right thing, but at the time it's really a huge change to your life. As I would recommend that everybody takes a step back and a breath before they start sending off resumes to everybody. Think about actually, what is it that you're looking for? And it could be that actually that what you're looking for is, I just need money. I just need to be able to keep up my payments. And then the idea would be for that is make your resume, apply for a similar job at another company, at a similar company, doing the same kind of thing, because that's where you're most likely, if you've been doing the same thing and you don't mind carrying on doing the same thing, then make sure your resume goes to those people. And at the moment, being laid off isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's happening everywhere. There's just wholesale layoffs being made in a lot of organizations. A lot of tech companies are laying off. Typically what we're seeing is tech companies are not laying off their developers. They're laying off UI UX people. They're laying off maybe the more junior. So it's a bit tougher in those markets, but again, it's trying to find your way back in. And just say, was there a criteria for the layoffs? Because typically, if you're last in, you're first out. And there's no shame in that. And put that on your, as part of the layoffs in such and such a company, last in, first out policy. Unfortunately, I was one of those who didn't, wasn't kept on. And that's fine, because you've still got a great skill set. It's just then, the challenge with that is because there's going to be a lot of other people in your position. But put yourself on LinkedIn that you're open to work, because I often go through LinkedIn and I have a look in and see who's available in what I'm looking for. So a lot of other recruiters will be doing that. When there's layoffs like that, there'll be a lot more headhunters going through the back, recruiters and recruitment agencies trying to gather up those people. So make sure you do that, as well as getting your CV out to companies that you'd like to work for. And again, even though you've been laid off, nothing is worse than desperation. So make me think that you want to work for me, not just anyone.
I love that. Really personalizing it. Yeah. And like you said, so many people are going through this right now. There's a lot happening. I know many, many folks that are being impacted by this.
And again, this might be a good time for a career pivot for some people. It might be that you realize, actually, I really hated that job. I hated going and doing that every day, like me as a beauty therapist. Maybe this is a time where I could be looking at something else. I could be looking at my transferable skills and taking them into something else. But with that, you recognize that you're going to start at a slightly lower position. You can't come in if you've been a senior. I don't know, if you've been a senior graphic designer, you won't start as a senior software developer, because that's not your experience here. You've got transferable skills, but you still got to get your development chops up. So there's a couple of things around that, just to remember that when you're looking to do a shift like that.
And on that note, what are some of the best ways to highlight our transferable skills? Where do you like to, how does that pop out on the resume?
So I'm seeing, because like anything, resumes are subject to trends for how they're laid out. At the moment, a lot of people are putting their skills as just keywords at the top of under their kind of resume objective personal statement. They're writing their skills, putting keywords, and it could be, empathetic, great cook. I always like to see somebody who might be bringing bacon into the office. So there's little things around there that you put them in there, and those are the things. And skills are not necessarily your qualifications. So for example, you can be a great coder, which you'll see in the skills, the qualifications that you might have, or not if you've come up through the non-computer science route, if you don't have a degree in it. But there's things that you can do in that skill set. Just put something in. It could be juggling. That's a skill. And it all depends on what but make the skills applicable to what you're applying for. So if you're applying for, you're a people person, you're applying for people and culture type roles, make sure that they know that you're empathetic, that you've got patience, that you've got attention to detail is probably vital for virtually every role. So it's those kind of things that people forget. Skills, and they are skills, because not everybody can do all of those things.
I love that. And if you're able to name it, that is a testament to self-awareness as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where can people find, like you said, there's trends. So as someone receiving a lot of resumes, you see the trends coming and going. But for people building them, we just have our own, maybe a friend's. Where can we see what a good format, a hip format is these days?
Google is your friend in that case. ChatGPT also, but Google will tell you, this is what you need. What 10 things do I need in my resume? What's the current trend? There's any number of sites that will tell you what to put in your resume and the type of layout that you want. Google, CV template or resume template.
I love that. I love that. Someone asked earlier, it was Rachel. Is there any bias or assumptions for people trying to go from a technical role, say financial analysis, to a more non-technical, people-oriented role, HR, talent development, when trying to go for a more fulfilling career? So here are these pivots. Do you feel like people on the other side, the gatekeepers, any biases around that?
I think sometimes there is. But again, with that, it's always, so for example, if you were looking for a great recruiter, you're looking for a talent acquisition specialist or whatever the title happens to be at the moment. If you're a company that does software, it might be useful to have somebody who actually knows how to code, because when you're doing the interviews, when you're doing the CV, you've got a little bit more information about, oh, is this relevant for that? Soft skills are always great. Any talent, I think, anything moving to a softer side is easier than moving from the softer side to a technical side, because if you're moving to something that requires some real tangible, measurable skill, like, how can you code, what's the quality of your code, those kind of things, it's a lot harder to move from being, say, a teacher to a coder. Whereas if you're coding and you're moving to being a teacher, it might be slightly easier, because you've probably taught somebody else how to code. You'll have given somebody advice. You'll have done, so you've got a little bit of that background. So when you do that.
Love that.
I'm sure that answered the question, so I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I think that makes sense. What are some helpful ways to address career gaps?
So again, we spoke a little bit about it earlier, which was make your career gap a project. If you've been unwell, say that you've been unwell, and there's no shame in that. So people sometimes have to take a break because they've had a medical situation. But again, as part of any of it, just say what you were doing in that time. So say for families, you've been the CEO of a small company. You've been working out, you've been planning, you've been doing all those things, and say what they are. It might be, what volunteering did you do in that career gap? Because you might have been traveling, and in that time you were traveling, you've actually been working, you've been working in bars, so you've got now people skills. You can do mental arithmetic where you're adding up the cost of all the drinks for somebody. Those kind of things is make the positive out of it, because you will have learned something. And what companies are looking for is, what have you been learning? What have you been doing? And of that, how does that translate into what you could do for my company?
Fantastic. Great. Okay, friends, we have just a couple minutes left for live questions. So if not now, when? So keep them coming. This is the time. This is the moment. Okay. Let's see. Another great question we had. Oh, yes, I love this. Besides listing the courses and workshops we've taken, what's a good way in which we can highlight our continuous learning mindset?
Tell me about it. Write it down. Write it down that you're always learning. And part of your personal statement, tell us what you're doing, that you're always learning. It could be, constantly learning languages or always looking for the next big thing. One of the things we always ask in interviews with Cami is what you do. What is it you're doing because we're always promoting that learning as an ed tech company, obviously we do, so what are you doing? What do you read? How do you keep up with the latest trends in your industry? What is it that you're looking at to make sure that you know what you're doing? And it's that, just tell people. It's really important that, as a lifelong learner, as an enthusiastic discoverer of new things, just put those into either your cover letter or your personal statement, so that it's really obvious that you're not just sitting back.
I love that. And I love there's lots of creative ways that you can phrase that. You just gave us a couple there. That's great. Okay. Someone asked, how can we best prepare to discuss what's stated in our resume during the interview process? What types of things do you tend to highlight and ask about during interviews?
So if you've put it on your resume, be prepared to be asked about it. And we go back quite a long way sometimes, because if there's something interesting in there or something odd, doesn't quite match with everything else, you will be asked about it. So just be, if it's on there, just know that we'll ask, depending on how much time we've got. And it could be that we're wondering why it could be sometimes it's because you've got a pivot. So what was the driver for your pivot? What was the reason that you did that? Or it might be that it sparks a question of, so in this particular role, can you tell me a time when? And then you'll get some like a situation based. So tell me about a coworker that you had an issue with and how did you resolve it?
Mm.
And I also, if you've got interests on there, we always ask you about your interests. Actually, we ask you about that even if it's not on there, because it's really important to us that people have a life outside. That work-life balance is really important. And I'm always a little bit not disturbed. I don't know what the right word is, but when somebody tells me that their hobby is their work, I just think, ooh, okay.
Like there are more hobbies. There are other ones too.
I get it a lot with developers. They also code in their spare time, and I get that.
Sure.
That's absolutely. But a lot of the time, they've also got something else that they do. There's always something.
Yeah.
It's just for that well-rounded. Because for me, I worry about burnout in people. And if you're just doing the same all the time, I just think, when are you stepping away from that and just getting a little bit more headspace?
Mm-hmm. Are there any other standout moments or any other things about resumes that I haven't asked you yet that you think it is important to highlight?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's a real tricky thing, a resume, because you've got a really short amount of time to get somebody's attention, and to try and do that in such a way that doesn't kind of discount you straight away because you look at something and you think, I can't read that, I'm going to put that to one side. So it's a real tricky thing. So the best thing is at the top of your resume is put your personal statement about why you want to work for the company that you're applying for. Because that's what we're looking for somebody who's passionate about our organization. And even if you're not, you can fake it.
Convince me.
But that's what people want to see. I want to know that actually you want to work for Cami, not just that you want a job, that you want to work for Cami and join us on our mission. That's what we're looking for. We're a mission-based company. We want to be helping people, and we're looking for people who are going to help us do that. We want people who feel as passionately about equitable education as everyone does. And that's what we're looking for. So have a look at the company that you're applying for's mission statement. Have a look at that. Does it resonate with you? And then write why it resonates with you. And that is a real good thing, because it will mean, all right, I'll put that one there to read later. I'll put that one there to read later, because you've got that. Here's somebody who really, really wants to join me.
Mm-hmm. I love too when you're saying earlier about, if there's something a bit odd on the resume, be prepared to talk about it. If it's relevant, you might have a fun Easter egg in there and have a fun story, or a story that's of relevance ready. Yeah. Might not always get used, but it's nice to have those little aces up the sleeve.
Yeah. And don't forget, the key thing of your resume is to get an interview. So you have to put something in there that you think will hook them. And that hook is, so it could be that, or it could be a little fun fact about yourself. I once interviewed somebody because he wrote that he played the flugelhorn, and it was a standout because I'd got a lot of CVs for a technical job, and they were all very dull and dry. And he'd put that he played the flugelhorn. Number one, I didn't know what a flugelhorn was. And number two, it meant that he was a little bit different from all the others who'd got all the same, on paper, had all the same qualifications. Anyway, he turned out to be one of the best testers I've ever employed, and became the test manager at the company where I was at the time. So again, just something, just a little thing like that, just one small thing on his resume was what got him through the door.
I love that because it's fun, it's different, it caught your attention, it shows that they're brave to be a little playful, a little vulnerable. There's so much
Absolutely. But
said in
I did ask him about the flugelhorn and where he played it and how he did it. So don't just put it on there because you will be tested.
Right. Don't steal that one unless you play the flugelhorn. And by all means, please put your flugelist skills. Okay, friends. So we are pretty much out of time for all the pre-submitted questions and your live questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone. Pamela is going to let you know how you can reach out again to and keep the conversation going. But first, we asked a few questions before we jumped on the call, and we asked you, how would you describe the culture in one word? You said inclusive, and I'll let you say more than one word now, if you'd like to expand.
Yes, we talk about this a lot. So we employ people for Cami. Obviously, they're skilled, but we employ people who are themselves. So it's, we do fully embrace to bring your whole self to work, because all the different lived experiences and backgrounds of our Camily, as we like to call it in a very cultish way, mean that we get a much better product, because we've got a product then that talks to a lot more people. So the inclusivity is really important. It's also really good for everybody that works at Cami as well, because we're meeting lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds that possibly we, in our everyday life, we wouldn't necessarily be meeting. So it's a really good, I would encourage anybody to look for a company that embraces the inclusivity and diversity of everybody.
Absolutely. And we asked you, what's your favorite part about working at Cami? You said the people.
Yeah, and it is the people, because everybody says this, oh, what makes us unique is the people, but it really is. I mean, in Māori there's a whakatoki, a proverb. It's very complicated about the flax and how it all works together, but ultimately it's he tangata, he tangata, he tangata, and it's the people. The people are what makes everything, and we put people front and center of everything we do. We put it with our product. It's a user-led product, and we put it with our people, because without our people, we couldn't be successful.
I love that. And what's your top tip for someone who is interviewing?
Be open-minded. Always be open-minded, because you never know who that little nugget, there's a gem out there that you need. You don't know you need them, and you won't find out if you're just very focused on, if I can tick these 3 things, I'm going to have that person. That's not what it's. You need 3 things plus, and that plus is, what is this person going to bring to my organization? And it's not in addition to their skills. And it could be that that they're going to be one of those cultural glue type people. You can see those people who will bring everybody in the organization together. There's people around, so look for those. Look for people who are going to be leaders. Look for people who are going to challenge. So be open-minded. It's just that I think if that's the one thing that you do in an interview, be open-minded.
Awesome. Well, this has been so fantastic. Pamela, please everyone join me in giving Pamela a round of applause. So great to have you. Thank you for making the time today, sharing your knowledge with our community, and making this possible, this event possible with Cami. It was so great to hear about it. And all of you on the call, thank you so much for your participation, your questions, your candor. I appreciate your humor as well. This was a fun one, everyone. I think we have fun around here. Am I right? So thank you so much. I hope we get to see you back at the next one. Be sure to check out the follow Cami on the Power to Fly website, where you can see open roles, benefits, more fun events, and links to everything. And Pamela, what's the best way to keep the conversation going with you if folks want to reach out?
So reach out via our page on Power to Fly, obviously, or contact us at careers@camiapp.com. You can hit us up on LinkedIn. What I would say though is, please don't ask me if I can have a 15-minute call just to chat through stuff, because we're inundated. with people asking us for 15-minute calls or quick chats, and we just don't have the time to do it. Much as we'd love to chat with you all like that, we haven't got enough time, and we do have other things that we have to do, unfortunately. So but do connect with us on LinkedIn, connect with us on careers@camiapp.com. And yeah, obviously the Power to Fly website. So ngā mihi kia koutou. Thank you, everyone. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pamela. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at the next one. Take care, everybody.